Just like LGBTQ plus on Wilton Drive.
like you.
Trini just little caught in his throat. On Wilton Drive, we're taking a lot of.
It was the dentist. It was the dentist.
Wow, it was the dentist.
I'm gonna take
again.
a second drink.
All right, let's take a momentary break and hear from our sponsor, who will never be with us again after tonight's conversation, Bacardi Rum. All right. During the Pride Month, generations within the LGBTQ community are continuing conversations about what is important to gay youth versus those who remember the Stonewall riots and those who survived the AIDS crisis. The generations are often opposed or have different views on social, political, pop culture, and religious issues. For example, the use of certain terms or labels like queer. The younger people are using the word queer easily to reclaim a once derogatory term. Baby boomers, however, struggle with this word because for them, that word often involves physical threats and violence.
Not to pretend like I'm a historian or anything, but I think we can all agree that the word queer doesn't really have positive connotations. Taking these off because that glare is terrible. I mean, just say it out loud. Queer. Queer. I'm sure I've been demonetized by now, but even the idea of someone calling me queer in like a forced positive mindset just makes me uncomfortable. For starters, it just sounds weird. I think Steph's queer or something. Oh, yeah, that explains it. I always thought she was weird. No, I meant she's gay. Well, why didn't you just say that before? The idea of reclaiming words is very strange to me, because we can go and reclaim this word. People use it all the time in like daily conversations, what have you, but words like queer just remain controversial. I know these words are vastly different. One refers to gender, the other refers to like sexuality. That's a whole other different video that you guys probably wouldn't want to see. It's just weird that we've gone and we've taken a word that meant happy and turned around in like the same breath and said, hey, that's a historically demoralizing and just all around demeaning word. I think we'll use that one next. I just can't help but shudder every time I hear the word queer.
Well, question 5. With a Bacardi shot, I'd swallow that. It's not 1975, and it's just old-fashioned to not embrace the word queer. Oh, everybody agrees with that.
You know what's crazy is that she looked pretty young. Like, I was surprised. I was expecting this to come out of someone older, right?
She had Al Ferguson glasses on. She had the Al Ferguson glasses on.
So the word queer goes back to 1513,
Yes.
okay, when it meant eccentric. That's all it meant, okay? And they took that and they twisted into being weird.
Right.
Oh, he's queer, whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. All right? We've taken it back like the word bitch. I really don't see it in a negative way.
And it's not like this is even necessarily a super recent thing. I mean, we had Queer Nation in the 90s who passed out all those pamphlets. I think it was at New York Pride. There's been an undercurrent behind the reclamation of the word queer for decades now, for longer than I've been alive. So in that way, like it is embracing this derogative term, this term that was used in a derogative way towards our community, and saying yeah I am queer, I am in all of its complexity and all of its diversity and all of its and all of its beauty. I think it's a beautiful thing.
It's part of our acronym,
I
folks,
think
okay? LGBTQ.
I think that the queer is the only word we have in our lexicon now that you don't have to say all the letters, in my opinion. Is that, even doing what we'll talk about
means
later?
Everything.
Exactly. Like you have to, the LGBTQIA plus, every time you want to talk about our community, we have to say all of these letters or somebody's getting offended about it. And I'm sure somebody will get offended about queer, like obviously this chick. But to say like just queer, like that encompasses everything. And I think it's the best word. I didn't use it before because I feel like nobody really has had a good definition of what it is. But in the past like 3 years, I feel like queer has kind of come into its own as its new word of like it's all encompassing of all
Let me
of
give
us.
you a
sort of like
different
a label
perspective.
without labels.
Hold on. Let me give you a different perspective. I'm a member of 2 large Facebook groups. One is basically, I'm not getting the exact phrase of the group room exactly correct, but gay over 40. And then a member of a group,
Gay over
60, the 2 different groups. If I post Queer News Tonight, we do the first and only daily live gay television news show in the world, Queer News Tonight. In Gay Over 40, there will be no response except to whatever the post of the story is. 1 out of 2 times in in Gay Over 60, it will be, I hate the name queer. It's disrespectful.
So first, no one laughed when Al said he was in a group for queer over 40. No one laughed
we
at
both.
that. Okay, maybe it was just me. But you know, the thing I also believe is, and I do appreciate everybody's gonna pass out that comment, because I think depending on how you grew up, queer was negative. Well, I think queer is beautiful. Or queer wasn't part of the vocabulary. Gay was negative. Gay was something that you never wanted to be called. Gay was fighting words. Faggot was fighting words. And so now I think that those are the things that as we grow up during that time period that we realized was horrible. So queer was something that was just all right. So it was part of the daily language. So you didn't use it. So you didn't understand what it was until now. And so I agree with you. But I do think that queer allow us to be everything that we want to be plus some, without being labeled to one binary versus the next.
If you go to the Oxford English Dictionary and you look up queer, it just says homosexual. That is what we are.
And that's all the difference.
And it's so unifying, because back, when I was in school, if you were a little gay boy, you got called queer. If you were too butch of a girl, you got called queer. If your gender wasn't clear to everybody, you got called queer. It was the one slur that was not specific to guy, girl, different gender. So it's no wonder, I think, that we've all kind of tried to coalesce around that. And I don't want to get I mess up the alphabet letters when I do it. They add some to it. I don't know when, to add the plus or not. I love queer because it's just embracing. It's all of us.
Always add the plus.
You should always add
But it's sort of like a label without labels. I know plenty of people who don't want to put a label on it, and so they do put a label on it, and it's queer. And that I think is so powerful. I also like when we're talking about reclamation, the way that we're able to take.
Dude,
the
slow the hell down. Breathe. My God, I can't keep up.
I'm really hard about it.
Holy crap! You're gonna explode right here, Papa. You're only 20.
I'm sorry. Again, Al needs to be able to keep up with me. But the way that we're able to take the power out of this thing that was placed on us in this negative light, and you mentioned the word faggot. I'll call myself a faggot too. I'll say, someone want to call me a faggot? Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I am. Faggot. That's me. Like it is, and proud of it. And
that's how I feel about queer, because again, queer wasn't part of what the daily life. And again, not whether economical status or where you went to school, however. So faggot was that word, but queer now shows the beautifulness of who I am, the beautifulness of who you are. Yeah. And so the ownership of that. And it wasn't until a friend of our show, Sim and Taisha, Nicole Miller, who said, hey, you are queer because you have all this, you have that, and not knowing that I don't have to be one label versus another. I can be all encompassing and everything. And so the ownership is beautiful, and I think that's why queer is so allowed and so welcoming into our world, because we're constantly evolving. We're no longer the dinosaur that sits at Al Ferguson. We're no so much better. We're so much evolved and amazing of humans, of understanding who you are as a person.
It's interesting to me. We got to move on, but it's interesting to me. While I hear the observations that you're making, it's not the number one reason that the word is reclaimed. I've read lots of historical perspective of why we embrace the word faggot, or why we embrace the word gay, or why we embrace the word queer, why people in the Black community embrace the N-word. And the number one reason why marginalized communities embrace the hateful word that they were used is to take the hate away from
Takes the
those
power
that would
away.
use
Yeah.
Takes the
it.
power away.
Well, Max
And the
said.
reason why the queer community takes queer and embraces it is to smack you in the face for using queer
This
as
blue
a
man.
hate word.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
But although that,
I
and
like-
again,
May I get this back to you though? The reason, the flip side of that is, so when you say gay, you can identify gay, someone who's same gender loving. If you say the N word, that person looks like that. But when you say queer, to them, they have no idea who that is. So now it's a mystery, and so people don't like that because they're not unable to define that.
Yeah, they can't box you.
They
can't box you in.
They
But
have
like
no
you
idea
said,
who you are.
label
it's
without
different because
labels, like I'm saying.
you said faggot, like you call your whatever. I'm not reclaiming that. So
Absolutely.
I will.
Honey, but you're so far behind
No,
us,
but-
puppy, that it might take you like years before
No, but
you even call
queer,
yourself a faggot.
for me, faggot is different than queer because we were talking about the use of the words, like back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Like for me, I never got like the derogatory thing it was faggot. It was not
Absolutely.
queer. You could say smear the queer. You
Can
play
I-
a few games like that, but people don't sit around like, oh, I think he's queer.
Can
They'd say like he's
I've
a
got to
faggot.
move on. But can I challenge the observation just real quickly? My story seems to apply directly to what your observation is. In the gay group over 60, which may have 40 or 50,000 people in that Facebook group, that's exactly what they just said. What you just said is exactly what they would just say. And you, and generally, we do not feel that way about the word queer. They do.
'Cause they were bullied with it like you were with faggot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my only point to you is it's interesting for us to think about the use of the word faggot is not a terrible word because we don't allow them to use that as the intent of the word. So therefore I embrace it. And that's where we are in queer.
I don't have a problem with people using it for themselves. I'm just not.
Yeah, you're not going to embrace it, honey, and that's okay. Listen, the word DYKE, I don't use it. Okay,
Oh.
and people use that to refer to lesbians all the time. I don't use it. There's a freaking march in San Francisco named the DYKE March, and I still don't use
why
the
would
word.
you
curious.
use it?
Wait,
Because
hold on.
because that was the derogatory word that was used for me.
And
You
so
understand?
you won't
So
say the word out loud.
I won't even
because
say
you
it.
won't
I won't even
embrace
Are
giving
you
it the energy.
offended by it if
Wait,
somebody says it?
Right. So we're hearing it. We're hearing the exact same observation
Absolutely.
on both sides.
Absolutely.
And the situation in gay men over 60 in the exact same way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whether it's the DYKE or FAGGOT or QUER.
Now we're gonna spell all the
No,
bad
I love
words.
the L.
all
Hold
the
on,
same.
twice I love L.
Right.
Y'all,
Like-
we all gonna, the,
like a
show's gonna,
Fergie song.
the world is going to end on January
Right.
4th,
Yeah. The
2023.
world is ending. All right. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.